If I can welcome you to the NGAA's market briefing. I'm Julia Coakley, Head of Operations, and our briefing today is being hosted by Premium Credit. Before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to run through a few housekeeping points. Please ensure your microphones and camera is off. If you'd like to ask a question, which will be answered at the end of the presentation in the Q&A session, please use the chat button at the bottom of your screen. If we run out of time and don't have an opportunity to put your questions to our speakers, our presenters will be happy to pick this up post-event. This presentation is accredited for CPD points if this is relevant to your ongoing professional development programme. The video will be available on our website and uploaded to our YouTube channel. Please take time to respond to our feedback survey, which will be issued after this webinar, as this will enable us to deliver the best quality events to our membership. So today's webinar, Supporting Your Business as the Economy Recovers, is brought to you by Premium Credit Limited. I'd like to introduce you to Shane Dixon, Learning and Development Manager, and Dave Sheath, Strategic Account Manager. Shane has over 15 years' experience in sales and learning roles and specialises in using psychology to understand client needs and how partners can use psychology to better engage with their clients. Shane joined Premium Credit in 2017 and has helped design and deliver courses for over 10,000 delegates to date. Dave has over 30 years' experience working in the insurance sector. His initial years were spent at Pearl, Norwich Union and Eagle Star, to name a few, before moving to his first role in broking in the mid-1990s, joining Towergate in 1998. Here, Dave went on to hold a number of senior management and sales development roles across a variety of niche delegated authority businesses. He left Towergate in 2015 to join JLT, Thistle Group, to run Compass, joining Premium Credit in 2018 to manage their insurer partner relationships and to help develop a new proposition for insurers and MGAs. So without further ado, Shane, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Julia. And I love my mugshots on the slide there. So brilliant. Thank you for that. So today's session is about supporting businesses as the economy reopens. As we know, it's been a pretty interesting year for everybody over the past 12 months, but hopefully there is some light at the end of the tunnel and we can get back to some form of normality over the next few months. So today's webinar, we're going to cover these few things that you see on the screen. So we're going to go through a few of the changes that COVID has had on the insurance market, but also the lending market as well. We're going to understand how your brokers are aiming for what's known as trusted advisor status with their clients and what you can do in order to support them. And we'll also show you how to present a finance package to your brokers, which will highlight the benefits that this can have for their client and ultimately try and help businesses as the economy reopens. So here's the roadmap of what we're going to take you through today. We're going to start looking at some industry and market insights. As many of you know, there's been changes across the pricing structure all across the industry. So we'll look at what some of those are. And we've recently conducted a survey called Insurance Index, which really highlights actually how some clients are paying. What we're then going to look at is what your brokers are doing and how they're changing how they're engaging with clients. As we know, client retention in a hard market is absolutely critical for businesses to keep profitable and manage their way through it. So what are your brokers doing differently? Have they changed their sales methodology in order to engage with their clients? So we're going to delve into a little bit of detail for that one today as well. And then, as we mentioned a minute ago, we're going to look at what opportunity as an MGA is there for you in this kind of market and what is there for you to support your clients. And there we'll look at how offering finance can really help present further opportunities for you and see if there's a universal offer we can get out to the table to all of our partners, because at the moment it could be inconsistent. So that's what we're going to cover today. But of course, with these webinars, it's not just about us lecturing you for an hour. We really want to get your opinion. So we're going to launch a really quick poll just to get some insights in your thoughts of the hard market. So the first question is, as we're emerging from lockdown, are you seeing your clients increasing cover or decreasing their level of cover? So on your screen, you should have a quick poll in front of you. You should be able to tick either of the two boxes. So as we emerge from lockdown, are you seeing your clients increasing or decreasing their level of cover? So first answer in 100% on increasing. Got a few for increasing there. Just prompt a few more answers to come through before we move on with today's session. So we've got 100% so far that are increasing their level of cover, and that's continuing as well. So pretty surprising that we've got 0% that are decreasing their cover. We're really finding that clients are increasing their level of cover as we're coming out of lockdown, which is really interesting and probably a really good space to be in. You know, if we're emerging from lockdown and price and premium cover is decreasing, then we're probably quite worried. So 100%, which is good, that we're finding it increasing. So there's definitely opportunity out there. So we're just going to end that poll and move on. And I'm going to pass you on to my colleague, Dave Sheath, who will introduce himself and take you through some really key insights from the industry we found recently.
Thanks, Shane, and good afternoon, everybody. Starting today's session, we just wanted to share with you a number of insights that we've seen over the last few months, and some emerging insights as we enter what is I guess a very unusual stage where there's lots of optimism and positivity about what the future might bring, but obviously there's still some concerns. The interesting insights here: we have 6 million SMEs in the UK. And a recent ONS survey, as recent as last month, showed that there were just under 14% of those SME businesses who had really low or nil confidence levels about their business surviving. And also, sort of almost 50% of those SME businesses were also concerned that their cash reserves would last for less than 6 months, which is again very concerning. Just moving on, Shane, if we can, please. We also then looked at obviously the budget, where I won't go through all of these. Everybody was aware of some of the announcements in the recent budget, but just to pick out a few or a couple, there's obviously the continuation of the furlough scheme until September 21, which has been a lifesaver for a lot of businesses and for a lot of individuals, and obviously also additional grants to help certain sectors, including the leisure and hospitality, that have been hit really badly, and then some sort of tapered some benefits over the next couple of years around VAT and corporation tax, and Shane will actually sort of touch on corporation tax later in the presentation. And I guess reflecting on the first slide, hopefully, you know, these measures will continue to be a lifeline for a lot of those SME businesses who are sort of concerned and struggling and worried about their cash reserves sort of lasting. The next few slides, again, Shane mentioned, we at Premium Credit, we put together an insurance index over the last few months, working with a lot of our partners, insurers, and brokers. And actually, I guess, you know, different to the poll at the start of the session, we're actually starting to see, or have seen, a number of SMEs reducing their cover in particular areas, and you know, whether that's for cost reasons, but certainly there's been a worrying trend in terms of cover reducing. But actually, the feedback from you guys, the MGAs today, is really positive and different to that. So hopefully that's a corner that's turning, and we're starting to see businesses who are you know, not having to do that, not having to reduce their cover, but actually looking to increase it, perhaps as the businesses start to get back to more normal trading. We also looked at how, on this slide, we'll look at sort of consumers on the next slide, how SMEs are actually paying for their premiums. So these are figures for SME businesses that are paying their premiums on credit. And actually, you know, you'd probably expect to see sort of 60% or more using a business credit card. But actually, there's some more worrying signs on here where businesses were actually using personal credit cards and personal loans to pay their insurance premiums. And actually, there's 7,000 SME businesses who are still paying for expired premiums using those type of facilities. So again, that was a worrying trend and something of concern, because I think, you know, we're probably guilty. We don't ask the question, you know, if a customer's paying in full, you know, how are they paying? But this gives a bit of insight into some of the methods that clients have had to use to pay their premiums. And moving on to look at consumers, you know, probably no surprise that a lot of those are using sort of monthly direct debit plans, but, you know, particularly from insurers. But again, there's lots of consumers here who have been using their own credit cards to pay their premiums throughout this period, and hopefully this will start to change and reduce as time goes forward. And we also took a look at the types of cover and how premiums were increasing over the in recent months. So in the property sector, we're seeing be interesting, if this is you're seeing this in your own world as well. Pricing is increasing by sort of 24% on average. Corporate clients paying the highest increases, but SMEs probably seeing 15% increases in most property sectors. In the world of casualty and liability, I think we've seen less impact. A lot of premiums remaining reasonably flat, but actually in the main sort of product and public liability sector, we have seen sort of 10 or 15% increases being passed on to clients. And perhaps the biggest area we've seen is in the sort of FinPro sector, where more than increases are substantial, and we're seeing back to the point we were making earlier on about reducing cover. We're seeing have seen clients had to adjust their cover in order to offset some of these increases. So hopefully you found some of those stats and insights interesting, and I'd like to now hand back to Shane to take you through the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Excellent, thanks Dave. And again, the really surprising one is over 40% of clients are actually adjusting their cover to offset the increases. And there was another really interesting stat that we read recently, and it's 42% of SMEs have had a case that they haven't been able to claim on because they were underinsured or didn't have the level of cover they wanted. So 42% didn't have the level of cover they needed in order to claim. So they actually needed that level of cover. But now what we're finding is 40% of clients are actually reducing their level of cover. So it's becoming very apparent that cost is becoming quite a big thing in the levels of cover that people are taking. And what was really interesting about the poll, as Dave mentioned a minute ago, which it seems that there's some shoots of recovery that actually you're finding that clients are increasing their levels of cover with you as well. So it's really interesting to see that in such a short space of time, about 3 months, that we've seen this kind of mini recovery. And we expect that to continue over the next few months as businesses open a lot during the opening of the economy. So what I want to just do now is take you through some of the benefits of finance, because a lot of the time what I hear is a lot of people only offer finance to clients that they think can't afford to pay their premium in full. But actually what we generally find is there's normally 2 reasons that a client might take finance. One, absolutely correct, that they might not have enough to pay that premium in full. But also what we found during this environment, that some businesses have absolutely thrived during this time and actually have quite a lot more cash. There's also been a lot available on government loans and other similar kind of schemes. So some companies have a lot of cash. Now, sometimes we wouldn't necessarily offer those businesses finance because they've got the cash, but what could they do with that cash? So some of the benefits of finance are it's definitely helping to improve cash flow. As Dave mentioned earlier, 47% of clients actually aren't 100% confident they've got more than 6 months worth of cash for their business to survive. So actually, is finance a way of mitigating that? And that's regardless of whether it's on an insurer scheme, a premium credit loan, or other forms of financing. Actually, it's not just for those clients that can't afford it. That can free up that cash for capital expenditure to invest it back into their business. Some of the other reasons we find that finance might be quite beneficial for some clients at these times is it's a fixed and a very competitive rate. So we showed you some other forms of borrowing that people are actually utilizing currently in order to pay for insurance premium. And as Dave mentioned as well, the staggering figures about those clients that are actually paying for SME and business insurance utilizing personal credit lines such as personal loans and credit cards is staggering. The average credit card APR last year was around 19%. So it's a staggering amount to be paying. It's quite easy to implement, but one of the key ones is installment flexibility. What we sometimes find in the insurance market is there is a blanket approach of offering 10 monthly installments to people. But actually, if some businesses need to cover the next 6 months, for instance, would that not be a better option for them? And then the real main one, which ties in exactly what we've been talking about today, is ensuring the costs are not prohibitive to cover. So I know it was great that you have seen clients increase in cover, but the stats from, sort of 6 weeks ago were saying that they're reducing cover across the board. We want to make sure that our clients and your clients are getting the right level of cover that they need, but cost isn't prohibitive and reducing what they actually require. So there's some of the actual key benefits, and there's one that a lot of people don't actually know. Now, we work with around 3,000 intermediaries, and as the introduction slide said, that we've trained about 10,000 people over the past 3 or 4 years here at Premium Credit. And the interesting one is everyone who I work with are really knowledgeable in insurance, on how the market works, on different risks, and they're great having those conversations. But it becomes at that finance discussion that people can sometimes feel a little bit nervous around those discussions, because sometimes they're dealing with finance directors. So we really help try and build that confidence around that. One of the key ones that a lot of people don't know about premium finance is that the interest rate is actually classed as a business expense. So it's reduced from a company's profit, and it therefore lowers their tax bill. So effectively, they're getting 19%, which is the current rate of corporation tax. And as you saw from one of the slides earlier, that is actually going to be going up for some companies in the higher profitability range. So just as an example, for some rates, you've got 6.15. If that's a rate that a client's paying and they're a business, that effectively for them becomes 4.98%. 4.9 effectively becomes 3.97. 4.05 effectively becomes 3.28. So as you can see, it's not actually the overall rate that the client will pay once they've done their corporation tax at the end of the tax year. So it's actually quite a good benefit. Now, the way that actually works, because again, it does sound like financial jargon, and a lot of us are definitely insurance experts rather than finance, is if I earned £1,000 profit last year and we went out for a business lunch, now not a swanky one, and I spent £100 on our lunch. If I earned £1,000 profit and then minus our business expense, which was the lunch, off of my profits are now £900. So I would only now pay my corporation tax bill on the £900 profit rather than the £1,000 profit. And it works exactly the same with the finance charge as well. So it's actually a really, really good tool to know, and something that when you're engaging with your brokers, if they're not aware of that, it's certainly something worth pointing out to them. Now, here's some common misconceptions that we hear about finance and why in some occasions it's not offered. Now, I've already mentioned a couple about a lot of people presume it's only for clients that can't afford to pay in full. Actually, there's a few other reasons that we hear. So one of them is that it's more likely that only the higher premiums are paid on finance, which isn't strictly true, because the average loan that we fund here at Premium Credit for commercial business is £11,000. But then we also hear it's our larger clients don't need it, as they can source funds elsewhere. And while that's absolutely correct, there's multiple different ways, and we've seen on some of the slides earlier how clients are actually paying for their loans using alternative finance means. Our largest loan here at Premium Credit is over £15 million, and we've got numerous in the £1 million plus category as well. And another one is it only applies to UK domiciled companies. And while that's correct, as long as the business has a legal entity registered with Companies House, and the insurance they're purchasing is to cover some of the business conducted in the UK, then it's absolutely correct that we can. So here's my lovely little Mythbusters sign here. So hopefully we've busted a few of those myths for you. Now what I wanted to do for the next kind of 10 minutes or so is, I said that we work with around 3,000 different insurance brokers. Now, a lot of them are completely changing how they're engaging with both yourselves and their clients in order to try and retain more clients, because the market is really tricky. We've had hard market conditions for about 12 months or so now. Then you kick in with COVID and businesses not actually trading. It's a real challenge out there. So brokers are really changing the way that they engage with their clients. And we touched on this on a previous webinar that we run, but I just wanted to go into a little bit more detail for this next 10 minutes. And the real key one, so I effectively started reaching out to a lot of the brokers. And I'm like, what are you actually doing differently? And previously, a lot of our partners were really just focused on winning new business and trying to keep their book turning over with new business, because ultimately they will lose some. The market's hard and prices have gone up. But what they're really focused on at the moment is what's known in a sales methodology as trusted advisor. Now, there is a few different methodologies out there, but this is the one, when I've been engaging with our partners, is the one that most come to the forefront. And it's based on a few different things. So we've got the kind of traditional 1990s salesman who's just, let's just get the deal over the line, get the deal. I just want to do it, which is a real high emphasis on their individual results and actually not so much emphasis on the client that they're dealing with. And then you've got kind of a slightly different approach, which is someone that's really, really helpful to people and always looking out for how they can help that person, which is a great approach. But actually, they're not really focused on their own internal business results, so might not be as successful. So what they're looking to do now is this real key balance between both of those, which is known as the trusted advisor, which is an equal focus or a high level of focus on both the results to their internal business, how they're helping their business, but also how they're really helping their clients out. And as you can see from those axes there, it's about creating together. So it's not just about how can they help them with their insurances, how else can they help them? What are our long-term goals? What are their long-term ambitions? What are they really looking to achieve as a business? And actually, through my network and through my experience, how do I help them achieve their goals? So this is a real key thing that brokers are now trying to kind of move their sales teams towards, is about working together with their clients in order to increase retention, but also to have that high focus on results. And in this stage, they're more likely to cross-sell, upsell, and also buy the right levels of cover that they're actually looking for. Now, I guess, how is this relevant to you? Because how do you engage with your brokers? So on this, where is the level of focus on the relationship and where is your level of focus on the results? So my challenge would be, if you look at that table in front of you and you're not in that trusted advisor space, then are you maximizing the opportunities of your brokers? Because it obviously doesn't work just from a broker to a client relationship. It works from a broker to underwriter, insurer, MGA relationship, but also from the MGA relationship back down to the client and the broker ultimately. So if you're not where you want to be on there, what can you kind of do in order to move your position to get more into that space where you're more likely to retain clients, but also more likely to cross-sell, upsell, and win business, certainly in a hard market? So like it says there, a high level of focus on the results, but also a high level on focus of the relationships. And what we're going to do now is look at those relationships. So what else that we're looking at is how else are our brokers supporting their clients? So of course, they're not just there to sell insurance like we've talked about. They're also a claim service for their clients. They help remove pain and friction from their clients. They help reduce the operational costs from their clients. They're there to help remove risks. And with your support, hopefully you pointing them in the right direction. Again, it's that focus on the relationship, which ultimately makes the client more happy and more likely to stay with you in the long run. They provide working capital, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in relation to finance. So again, it's going above and beyond just selling them insurance. It's about providing a whole plethora of advice and support in areas they feel confident in to try and make their clients' lives easier. Now, we talked a minute ago about why is working capital beneficial for clients? So actually, why is cash flow really, really important for clients at the moment? So it's ultimately, what can they do with that money instead? So a few examples here. And the world's your oyster in this respect, that it can be on anything, but just a few things that we kind of highlight to our broker community, who then in turn engage in their conversations with their clients. So investing that in new stock. Now, how would a broker know that their client needs new stock? It's about the quality of conversation, going back to the trusted advisor. If they identify what that client's growth plans are for the next 1, 2, 3 years, actually, can they use the premium amount, for instance, or any other forms of lending to help their client invest in that new stock and ultimately grow, which benefits not just the end client, it benefits the broker and also the MGA community yourselves. Can they use it for other investments? Or can they use it for new business opportunities? A lot of companies have completely pivoted the way they've done business over the last sort of 6 to 12 months. So can they use it for that? Can they use that money to invest in people? Or can it just give them flexibility to operate for a few more months, similar to a support cushion? So again, these are the kind of things that brokers are now doing to engage with their clients to help them be in that space of being a trusted advisor. What they're also doing is what's known as a challenger sale methodology. So this is a bit of a mix of two upcoming or latest sales methodologies we've seen recently. And I'm pretty sure some of you have worked with these, or it might be even be the preferred one inside your organization. But what's really interesting is the statistic above there, which says the average number of stakeholders involved in the business-to-business purchasing decision is 6.8. Now, a lot of brokers only have the relationship with maybe one person in their client organization. So what they're also doing is looking to expand their relationships within that organization to build more kind of ingrained relationships, but also to understand the different people. So here's a methodology called Miller-Hyman based on strategic selling. So you've got what's known as the economic buyer. And that's the person ultimately that's signing the check, for instance, or signing the finance agreement. They're paying for the policy. But what the brokers are also doing is liaising with different people in that organization who might utilize that insurance policy, such as the user buyer. Now, that could be someone like the fleet manager, the IT security person within that organization. They're reaching out to more people inside that organization to understand their pain points. And ultimately, if you understand someone's pain points, you can deliver a tailored solution back to them and again, be more likely to win that business. So they're increasing their relationships within that organization. And then you've also got what's known as the technical buyer, which potentially is the risk manager, for instance, where there might have always traditionally been a relationship. But a really interesting one for a company I used to work for is we used to have a procurement policy that if there wasn't a sustainability a good sustainability policy within that organization, it didn't matter whether the product you were offering was at the right price and suited the needs of all the users. If they didn't meet the sustainability policy, they wouldn't be able to do business. So brokers are also really looking for those multi-level relationships inside that organization. And again, my challenge to you would be, within the brokers that you're dealing with, do you have multi-level relationships in order to be their trusted advisor from an underwriting MGA perspective? And if not, are there any key people in the brokers you work with that you might want to start building those relationships with in order to further enhance your chance at winning new business and retaining those renewals? And the other thing they're doing, and which definitely been a cause of the way that we've moved, the way that we're doing business now. So a lot of people in insurance, brokers, would traditionally be out in the field driving to clients' houses or clients' businesses in order to conduct their business. So they might have been on the road for 2, 3, 4 hours a day, and certainly was the case for me, for instance. Now what we're finding is we get a little bit more time. So gone are the days where it will just be one client contact, maybe mid-year, just to check in on how they're doing before we start engage about winning that renewal. There's much more opportunity for touch points, really quick conversations with people to really enhance those relationships in this hard market and ultimately try and win more business than our competitors. So some of the other forms of marketing they're using is called being front and center, or you might have heard of it as nudge marketing, for instance, which is a way of trying to influence behavior pre-picking up the phone or engaging via email. Now, many of us use social media, for instance. Did you know the whole of social media is built on a brain chemical called dopamine? That feeling where someone likes your post, you get a slight little release of a brain chemical called dopamine, which makes us feel good. Now, can we utilize that to our advantage? So is there anyone on your LinkedIn or social media that you don't actually know, but just by what they post, you probably have a relationship with them that if you wanted the product that they're selling, you would probably go to that person just based on the stuff that they're posting, because they make themselves relevant, knowledgeable, professional, and an industry expert just by using social media platforms and utilizing social media posts. Liking a lot of other people's posts and status builds up a subconscious liking of that person before any engagement has taken place. So brokers are utilizing a lot of these kind of modern social media platforms in order to try and retain their clients and have multiple more touch points over an insurance period life cycle. They're also using seasonal messaging. I know many of us do that anyway. It's those client touch points that we have, Christmas cards, Easter cards, and those kind of things. Again, it's that subconscious engagement that you've got a long-lasting relationship and you're working with that client in their best long-term interest rather than let's just get the sale over the line now and see what happens next year. Utilizing your website and sending out regular links and comms, but also dropping clients direct messaging. We've got so many forms of engagement at the moment, social media, utilizing WhatsApp and other kind of quick messaging, that we can actually really quickly find out any additional pain points our clients are having, rectify them. So when it comes to renewal, for instance, they should have a nice clean slate and a happy relationship with us. So again, we're more likely to win new business, but also retain our existing client base, which, as we know, is the real key focus at this point. So now what I'm going to do is just launch a quick poll, and the questions should appear on your screen very, very shortly. I'll wait for it to appear in front of mine. But it's simply, which of these current ways of communicating are you using with your clients currently? So out of the ones there, and I'll just wait for this poll to appear on front of my screen. There it is. So which of these are you doing more regularly now to improve your relationships with brokers? Because this isn't just a one-way street of what your brokers should be doing with their clients. It's actually, how do you increase that relationship you've got with your clients? Excellent. So we've got one in there for news articles, seasonal messaging, social media posts, direct messages as well, which is really, really fantastic to see. And it's about utilizing all of them, isn't it? And I don't know how many of you know about Pareto's principle. We've all heard that in some form of training session we've attended before, which is really about focusing that 20% of your time, effort and energy, which delivers 80% of your results. So I'll just go through the results that we've seen come through on this poll. So we've got 17% have used social media posts, 17% of us have used news articles, and the same with seasonal messaging, 17% again on website updates and links, and 33% for direct messaging. So it's fantastic to see that a lot of you are doing these kind of things very regularly anyway. So again, it's how are you increasing those relationships, those touch points with your brokers, showing them that you're the go-to person for that policy, because there's nothing like spending a couple of hours building a proposal and you don't even get a response back to it as well. So we want to try and build those real healthy relationships and support our brokers who in order can support our customers during these really tricky times. So really good to find out your poll responses there. I'm just going to end that poll there, which is fantastic, and hopefully you can see the results. You will have to just click out of that form yourself as we move on. So now what I'm going to spend the last bit is actually, what does all of this mean to you? So we talked about actually what the state of the economy is, what clients are doing, how they're actually going about paying for their premiums, what have they changed due to COVID, what are your brokers actually doing differently from your client engagement, and hopefully gave you some nice quick wins on how to improve your client engagement with your broker community. But actually, what else is there? So of course we work for Premium Finance, and we normally, and we have many, many relationships, like I said, with your broker community, and you can see them across our little middle row of grey boxes there. Now, in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got different brokers and how they go about offering finance. So we tend to offer finance to most of our policies, but we know some clients are very well off and they probably don't need it, so we probably don't offer it to them. So on the left-hand side, you see what's called penetration, which effectively is out of a broker's total GWP, what percentage of their clients are offered finance or take finance out. On the second box, you've got actually, they're offered slightly more of their clients are offered finance. And in the third broker, it's kind of used as a distress purchase. So if it only offered if the premium has risen significantly and the customer doesn't seem to want to pay for the increase, then they might roll out a finance offer at that time. In the blue box, you've got quite a large finance offer. That's potentially with one of our competitors. And then in the green box is another competitor. And then on the right-hand side, you've got one that doesn't even offer finance and it's only paying full options for our client. And I'll just reiterate what Dave mentioned earlier on during the call, which was how many of the brokers actually question their clients to how they're paying that premium in full. And it's a really tricky question, isn't it? That, you know, I'm an insurance broker. If a client wants to pay me that full premium amount in full, then why wouldn't I take that? Whereas actually, if we asked a question about, would you mind if I asked how you're paying that? Oh, I'm just putting it on the card. Great. Do you mind if I ask you what the rate is? Actually, is that becoming more of that trusted advisor to a client? And I'm certainly not saying it's something for you to do. It's more about what the brokers that you're working with. So what does that actually mean to you? That there's a real inconsistent offer of finance across the broking community. So some are offering it lots, some are hardly offering it, and some don't even offer it at all. And there's different companies. But because you get to sit at the top of that broker community, you've got those relationships with each and all of those different brokers. Actually, is there an opportunity for you to offer finance consistently across your whole broker community? And you might already do that anyway. It's just a question. And what we can do to help you, if that's something you do, you might even use premium credit to offer that finance offering to your clients, is we try and make this easy for you. We know you don't have that direct relationship with the end client. So actually, what can we give you that you can pass down with your proposal, which should hopefully mitigate any rising increases and making sure that the cost of cover isn't prohibitive? So what they actually need is deliver a compliant proposal of finance to them as well. Again, only if it's the right thing for the customer. They might completely say, no, it's not for me. But actually just getting the offer on the table means that you're kind of doing your bit. So in this example you see here, we're offering a client multiple different installment options. It doesn't just have to be 10 months. So there's a 6-month option, a 10-month option, and a 12-month option here. And it's got a premium amount here, a rather large one, a £250,000, and then what the fees that they'll charge with that. It tells the client what the total amount they'll pay is, as well as what their payments will be. So again, it's getting that nice, compliant and suitable offer of finance in front of all of your clients. It explores multiple payment options and is a minimal frictionless process. It's simply a 1-minute form to fill in and deliver it down with your proposals. It can support the current crisis by easing some of that burden, like we've been talking about. And there's it in a little bit more close up if you to see. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about is what's called cost benefit analysis. So it's a very similar printout. Now this one's maybe a slightly different one because you don't have that direct relationship with your client, but this shows those clients about reinvesting the premium amount back into their business and how that could potentially look for is it worthwhile for them? So in this example, we've got the £250,000 one on 10 installments, and it's got the fees and charges. But you might also notice on here that it says what their corporation tax rate is, but it also then spells out what their corporation tax savings are. Again, giving your brokers a really easy conversation to have with their clients without getting involved in discussions that they might not feel comfortable with. Also on there, you might notice it says client ROCE. And again, that's another financial jargon terminology we use. What that means is return on capital employed. So now I'm going to pretend that I'm Shane's ice cream van. Now I've got £100 to invest in my business. Now I might want to invest that into ice creams. I might want to invest it in marketing or adverts in the local paper, or I might want to invest it into a new pitch where hopefully I'll make more money. On average, I'll have an amount back that regardless of where I invest that on average is what I will make back. So I'll take my £100 and I'll invest it in stock, and I made £110 back. So my return on capital employed is 10%. So what this tool simply does is show your clients based on the premium amount, if they invested the premium amount in their business at their return on capital employed, what would the return be? Sometimes this will be positive, sometimes it will be negative, depends on business performance. But it really gives an objective overview to actually if that investment is worthwhile to that client. So they're just some of the tools that we provide both our brokers, but also to any insurers, MGAs that we work with in order to deliver that compliant offer of finance every time to their clients. So we suggest to present it to all clients, again, because we don't always know how what that client needs are. A lot of brokers will only offer finance to clients that have they'll only offer finance to clients that have paid on finance before. If they're cash rich, they wouldn't offer them finance. So again, are they missing opportunity themselves, or are the brokers reducing cover purely because of the premium amount? And in this kind of market conditions, it should be a primary offer just to try and help the blow of those increasing premiums. And there's another close-up view of that. So I think that brings me to absolutely bang on time. So just to give you a quick review, we covered those market insights about how people have changed how they're paying during the pandemic and how they're actually utilizing different finance methods such as personal credit cards and personal loans. And in the retail and private individual market, 6% have even utilized payday loans, which is stunning. How people are paying, which I just mentioned, but what brokers are aiming to do with their clients. But I would also utilize that same methodology for how you're engaging with your brokers as well. How do you stay front and center of their mind and not go to other MGAs or insurers for policies? How do you make sure they're coming to you? But also you've got that opportunity of, can you be the one that presents that compliant offer? Because the economy to scale of businesses like yourselves, you might actually be treating the customers more fairly with a lower offer. And that brings me to the end of my bit. I believe we're going to allow some time for a Q&A. So on that note, I think I'm handing back to Julie.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Shane. That was really interesting. Particularly, I think no one can fail to have their ears prick up when you hear about tax savings for businesses. So it's a really good point and very well made. So thank you for that. So we have got a couple of questions. The first one is, how would you go about setting up with a finance company like Premium Credit?
I'll take that one, Shane, if you like. Yeah, thanks, Julia, and thanks everyone for the question. Yeah, it's a relatively straightforward process. Obviously, we would need to kind of meet and discuss individual requirements of an individual MGA business, but then if after that point it's really just a straightforward kind of application process, we need to carry out a few relatively straightforward financial checks, etc., and then we could move the relationship to a live one. So yeah, relatively straightforward process, and happy to have any discussions separately with any MGA businesses.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, another question. Have you changed much in your underwriting since the pandemic started?
Yeah, it's a great question, Julia. Thank you, whoever asked that one. It's of course we really have introduced what we call a COVID form, similar to pretty much other lender on the market. That we need to understand how the business is functioning and how they've been impacted due to COVID. Hopefully, it might not be in place too much longer if we get back to some form of normality, but we do ask a few other questions in order to really efficiently underwrite any cases that are kind of being sent our way currently. So yeah, really good question.
Thank you for that. So there aren't any more questions. However, for our participants, if you do have any questions that you think of post-webinar, both Dave and Shane have kindly suggested that they will take these questions. So if you want to field them through either to the info@MGAA or Shane, Dave, will you provide your contact details on the slide deck? Is that?
Yeah, sure.
Great stuff. And we'll make the slide deck available for participants post-event. Actually, I've just got one more question. I think we still have time. Okay, so another question. Hold on, I've got another couple of questions. Have you changed your approach to which insurers you will provide credit for following Brexit? For example, non-UK companies.
I think that's one for Dave.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. Interesting question. We do have I'm not aware of any specific changes we've made, but we do have a specialist team within our Leatherhead office who actually look at insurers, insurer rating, insurer strength, and consider those options. So to answer the question, I don't think we've made any specific changes or had to make changes. But I'm happy to follow that up with a more direct answer, Julia, if you want to share the details, and I can check in with the relevant team just to make sure that's factually correct. But I'm not aware we've had to do anything different, but obviously it is something that we've considered over the last few years.
Okay, thanks for that. Thank you, Dave. Another question has been submitted. Can the premium finance cover multiple policies bought at the same time, for example, legal expenses, insurance attached to a combined commercial policy?
Simple answer, Julia, is yes, it can. Yes, it can, and the same the loan that's set up for that client can also then deal with any ongoing midterm adjustments that there are for those policies. So the simple answer to that question is yes, it can.
Great, thank you very much. Well, I do think that's it for questions. Again, thank you again for your time, both Shane and Dave. Really important information there that was, I think, well shared. And as I say, the couple of points about tax saving for businesses and of course offering premium credit or credit finance for cash rich companies is probably something that's certainly a learning that I would take away from this one. So thank you to everyone for joining the MGAA's market briefing today. As I said, the slides will be made available post-event. The webinar will be uploaded to both our website and to our MGAA YouTube channel, and you will be receiving a survey link to complete a survey for your feedback. And we would again ask you to complete that because it's important for us to know your views and how we can improve and keep doing the things that you want us to be doing as your association. So thanks very much. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Shane. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much, all.
Thanks, everyone.